What would Yngwie do if he had to play over a natural minor? Something like this. Well, something like that anyway. It's not a total, what do you call it, replica. It's not a total note for note solo. It's pretty much what he does. The chops that he does and the melodic content between. He does very small things here and there, maybe a little different, but this video is not about playing or learning his solo. This video is about understanding what his approach is to soloing in different situations. In this situation we take an awesome song from the seventh sign called Brothers, and it goes over a natural minor, and it's not that often he does that. He uses the harmonic minor very much because it's such an expressive, it's very, I mean, just the scale in itself sounds awesome. And I think sometimes you have to be a little more creative using the natural minor. But that's another topic. Anyway, what he does is he plays over A flat to a G flat minor, actually with an A flat in the bass. And then after that, the song ends in a little short piece where he actually uses the harmonic minor scale. So he goes into the minor here, the A flat minor, then the G flat again, but with P flat in the bass, the third in the bass, and then the B, and then into the E flat. Could actually be with the seventh, but in this situation he plays the fifth step of the harmonic minor, also called the dominant flat 9, as I remember it. But everything, all other than that, is just the A flat major scale, natural minor. Oh, sorry. That's just the natural minor. And then we goes up here. He uses the major, but with a flat 7th and a flat 9th and a flat 6th, which comes from the 5th step of the harmonic minor scale. But what we're going to talk about here is how can we not copy Yngwie, because that would just be playing it note for note, which is not really that interesting, in my opinion. It's awesome to be inspired from other people. I've been that since I started as well, from a lot of different guitar players. But I think what we can do, what really makes more sense for you to develop your style, is to see what does some of my favorite guitar players, what do they do, not what exactly are their chops so that I can copy them, but what do they do? And as you may not be that surprised unless you're very new to playing guitar, Yngwie plays a lot of scale patterns, just straight up and down, which is awesome once you get a little bit of speed on it. And then also some arpeggios. And he starts right off, which he also does a lot, with just playing an A minor triad. In 3 different inversions. This means that he's playing the same arpeggio but in different inversions. An arpeggio comes in the chord, a root note, a minor third in this case, and a 5th, And then the inversion goes like so. If you start with the root note, then the next one, in the theory anyway, not always on the guitar because the guitar is such a mess the way that it's designed. And the next one in theory starts on the third, in this case the minor third, and then the third one starts on the fifth. That's what's going on here. And between all these scale patterns, he plays all these awesome, very beautiful long notes, and one of, in my opinion, one of Yngwie's really trademarks, or what really makes him such a strong guitar player, is, of course, it's all his chops, but it's also his vibrato, his sense of melody and vibrato. And this is funny because people, when they think of Yngwie, they think of all the flashy and fast stuff, which is, I love it, but his vibrato just kicks ass. It's so awesome. So those little melodic pieces that he plays in between the chops really, I think, makes this solo also. The long notes with the vibrato and stuff, it's just right on the money. And as you can see, since an arpeggio is just a tool and a scale is just a tool, you don't necessarily have to repeat his stuff. Right, so the first thing is the arpeggio in three inversions, and then he goes into this very melodic little idea where he sort of bends from the second into the minor third of the A flat and go into the fifth. And the interesting thing about that is that he plays the melodic content very strongly based on the chord notes, and this the cool thing about that is that you can't go wrong. I mean, you're pretty much sure that it will sound awesome because it's has strong relations to the chords. And I don't want to say that that's what he's thinking when he's playing. I definitely don't think, and neither do I, neither do a lot of people, because I think in my opinion, if you think too much about that shit, you'll be, I think it often becomes kind of a stiff deal. And so instead just play in what sounds right, what feels right. And of course that's based on the scales, so you need, of course, also a strong basic knowledge of the scales. So that's what he does anyway. And one more thing I really want to also touch upon here is that I definitely believe that this is the kind of solo that it's semi-improvised, I would call it. It's a typical solo that comes from playing over the same thing again and again and again. And at some point you kind of develop these little things. I want to do this here, around here, and this one around here. And what's cool about that, I think, is that you'll get something that sounds a little more free and a little more intense, I think, because it's not like I start on 1 and then I end at 4 and in the next bar or something like that, which is a fine thing, but then it's very rigid and very composed, and that's great for some things. But I think the other way, where you just play over it again and again, you get these little magical moments, I think, when you do it like that. And I think that there can't be any doubt that this solo is one of those types solos, because it sounds semi-improvised, you know. I'm sure that he knows that he want to play this pattern here and this arpeggio here, and he want to start the solo like this and he want to end it like this, for example. But all other than that, he just like winging it to some degree. And to a beginner, winging it is a horrible thing to say, because, I mean, you need something that works to be able to wing anything at all. So, of course, he's very, very much at home with the scales and the arpeggio. So that's what he's kind of using. And it sounds so improvised because he's been doing it for a million times. And at some point, like with everything else, at some point it just becomes second nature. So that's what I'm saying here. try to take a chord progression and then just play the solo again and again. Repeat this some kind of improvised solo. You'll realize that you at some point play something that that really sounds awesome. Let me try it again, and then you'll develop your chops and your melody from there. That's what he's been doing here. Anyway, back again into the thing. Then he plays the solo. Then he plays something that really sounds awesome. It's kind of a lick, but it develops a little bit in speed. Something like that. So it's a pattern. This is the pattern, right? And in case of the A flat, you play minor third in the second, then to play the fifth and the fourth, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and that idea, it's not really that it's the minor third, the second, and the fifth and the fourth. It's really more like the intervals, like a second interval and then a fifth between those. And that idea he repeats down the scale, you know. So we start with the minor third and the second, then it starts with the second and the root note, like that, down the scale. That's the idea. And that's kind of just about a scale pattern. And then he plays just a scale pattern, and the same here. Back again. So and when you hear it slow, it doesn't really make that much of sense. Oh, it's just that. Is it only that he plays? I mean, it sounds simple, but with up the speed and with the combined with all the melody and stuff, it just becomes a killer solo. Yeah, and then he ends it with that little melodic thing between the fifth and the flat and sixth. And then he has this crazy bend. He actually plays a full bend. And that's kind of just a little melodic melody. And then he plays this. You could either play it with the alternate picking, or as I did before. I mean, I changed the not the patterns, but the sequence of the notes a little bit, and that's also the reason that I said it's not note for note solo. And then he just ends it with. You could do this. But that's a harmonic minor, as I said, on the last chord. But all other than that, it's a natural minor. So, to sum up, what can you use this information for? Well, the whole idea is for you to get an idea of what is this man doing. Because especially if you haven't been playing for many years and you don't know necessarily what he's doing, you just hear all these notes and bends and whatever is happening. It's really cool to get an analysis of what he's actually doing. If I want to play that style of music, what does it take to create that sound? Well, this is the answer to that. The scale patterns. And of course, I'm not going to lie to you, of course it's going to take a lot of intense practicing to be able to play at that kind of speed that he does, as well with all the bends and having that really intense vibrato and stuff like that. And also vibrato is to a large degree, I think, a personal thing, what you prefer and stuff like that. And then of course the arpeggios. That will also take some drilling to be able to play it at that speed, of course, but you shouldn't worry about that. What you should worry about is what do you need to practice to be able to at some point play stuff that you really like to hear, like Yngwie Malmsteen. And so I will really encourage you I mean, there's a million places where you can get the patterns for the scales and the arpeggios, to start drilling stuff like that, but also really be playing around with vibrato and bends. Because I think we can agree that there's a difference between just playing, and all situations has calls for a specific approach. So, but if you want to play the style that Yngwie does, then you really want to, start working on your vibrato. He has kind of an aggressive vibrato that fits the neoclassical style. I've created the backing track that I created is obviously just a simple little backing track with the drums, programmed drums and bass and keyboards. So, but it's a lot of fun to practice to, and there's a count-in on it, and you can download it below this video if you're interested. So it just makes it more fun to practice. I'm Niels Vejlud, and I'll see you again real soon.